Hi, I'm Anna. Me and my fellow organizers, we have Lee over here and Andrew. And now I'm not on again, okay. We're very, very excited to welcome you to PLMW. We have a really exciting program today with some great speakers and panelists. And we also have a fun event this evening at Jane Street's offices that's going to involve dinner and board games. So we're excited to see you literally all day. For our first speaker, I want to introduce Derek Dreyer, who is faculty at Max Planck, and he's going to be here starting off the day because he's program chair of POPL'. So, Derek, take it away.
All right. My slides are not showing, so let's let's hope this is working better than yesterday. Yes. Good. Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Great. Thanks to Anna, Leo, and Andrew for inviting me and for organizing this workshop. I've been involved with PLMW for many years, both organizing and giving talks, and it's a lot of work organizing these workshops. So if we could all start with a little round of applause for the organizers, that'd be great. I'm talking to you today. I'm going to give a sort of brief talk to open this workshop. This is sort of traditionally a talk that the program chair of the conference gives to sort of give you an idea of what it's like to attend a conference. Out of curiosity, how many of you have attended POPL' before? Okay. How many of you have attended any conference before? Well, a few more. Okay. And how many have attended no conference? All right, most of you. That's great. Okay. I'm going to give sort of some words of wisdom based on my experience over the years, starting from when I was, the first POPL' I attended in 2000, and some things I've learned that I think can help you have a more enjoyable and fruitful experience here. So the first question is, what are you trying to get out of coming to POPL' or any conference? I think there's basically two main things. Oh, and by the way, before I go on, I should say a lot of these slides are based very closely on slides that Amal Ahmed used last year when she was program chair. So I should give her credit for that up front. So there's two basic things you want to get out of the conference. One is to get a sense of what research is like in the field. And the other one is sort of social networking, trying to get to know people, particularly people in your cohort, but also senior people as well. So let me talk about these two. I'm basically going to talk about these two things. So in terms of what is, what to get out of the research or what to learn about the research in the field, this is, let's look at the POPL' program here. So this is basically what's going to happen over the next 3 days. There's going to be two invited talks on Wednesday and Friday morning from Azadeh Farzan and Nate Foster. There will be 93 papers, which is a record number of papers accepted to POPL', selected from 319 submissions, which is a record number of submissions to POPL' this year. So the field is pretty vibrant and healthy. And that's presented in two parallel tracks over the 3 days. 9 of those papers received Distinguished Paper Awards, so those are papers you might particularly look out for. The program committee felt they were particularly strong. There's a business meeting. I might say, why do the students care about the business meeting? I always found a business meeting fascinating because this is where you sort of see a little bit of how the sausage is made. Also, I'm speaking at the business meeting, so you should definitely you should come to the business meeting. No, but it's not just boring business. There'll be a report from me as the PC chair. There'll be a report from Philippa Gardner as the general chair of the conference, and a bunch of awards are given out. I think it's always a very interesting meeting. There's receptions on Wednesday and Thursday after the conference at something like 6:15, 6:30. I highly recommend you go to those. Those are really good networking opportunities. There are session previews. So this is, I'm going to say more about session previews in a minute, actually. So I'll leave it for the next slide. And don't forget the POPL' song. So there's this is not exactly a tradition. Sometimes we have a POPL' song, sometimes we don't. But this time, Ali Donaldson and John Wickerson have prepared a special duet for Friday morning right before the keynote. So I have not heard this, but judging based on past performance, you should be there. Okay, so highlighted in red are the things that I would say are like musts. You should really definitely do all these things. So, of course, I'm leaving out like most of the conference here, which is the 93 papers and the session previews. So let's talk about that. So, I think my first message about attending a conference is don't let the conference, in particular POPL, happen to you, okay? You should happen to POPL, right? So a common failure mode is that you come to the conference and you're kind of passive and say, oh, there's all this exciting research. Oh, I don't know anything about it. I should just sit and attend all the talks and try to soak up everything. Don't do this, right? You will get completely exhausted. You'll tune out. I know, having been a student who did this, right? It's just you get a little depressed. You're like, oh, there's all these great people. They're doing all this fantastic research. I can't understand any of it. Well, guess what? I come to a conference, I go to some talks, I can't understand them either, all right? So, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, 25 years or something. So it's, that's completely normal to not be able to follow everything. And if you just try to follow everything, you're gonna get really burned out. So what I recommend is the following. You can do some variation on this, but basically look over the program up front and see if there's a few sessions, maybe 4, and this is a random number, but something like that, that you're really interested in, like that seem like an area you're particularly interested. Go to those. Then look for some others that you seem maybe could be interesting, but you don't know that much about the area, all right? And for those, I would say check out the session previews, which I'm going to say a bit about in a second. But the session previews will give you sort of an idea of what that session might be about, and then from those you can choose a couple sessions you want to go to. And if you miss a session, say you're talking to someone and you missed the session you really wanted to go to, don't panic. Everything is being recorded. Everything's being live streamed to YouTube. You can watch talks later. You can watch it from your hotel room. Like there's no disaster if you miss a talk. So it's more important actually that you engage in the conference in an active way than that you just sit in talks. So these session previews I want to say a little bit about. This is something we just started last year. This is and this is current. This year it's being organized by Nate Foster and Clément Pitt-Claudel. And I think this is a really nice service. So these are basically 10-minute invited talks, one for each session of the conference. And the idea behind this is that these are talks that you would see before the session. In many cases, they're I think on the Thursday, they're right before the session, and on Wednesday and Friday, they're like an hour or two before the session. They're intended to sort of make the session, or make POPL in general, more accessible and give you some idea of what the papers in that session are about, and maybe a little background on the topic. So I highly recommend you go to some of these, specifically for the things where you're not completely sure about the area, but you're sort of curious. But don't go to all of them, all right? This is a really nice service that people are giving these talks, and I'm amazed that we got so many of these session previews organized in the last month. But if you go to all of them, you're not gonna have any breaks, because these are during the breaks. So be judicious in attending these. And sort of my general message, as I said before, is like, don't worry if you don't understand everything you see, all right? Be happy if you understand something and you want to learn more from that, okay? I'm always happy if I go to a conference and I come away having learned something. Okay, so that's sort of getting a sense of PL research. And then the other key aspect is this sort of social networking part. So there's kind of 2 groups of people you want to really network with. One is other students. So I think POPL and PLMW especially are great opportunities to meet other students and befriend other students, particularly those in your cohort. Like if you're about to enter graduate school or apply for graduate school, or you're an early graduate student, there's a lot of students here in that same group. And often I know a lot of people who met other students at this kind of event, and then they remain friends for many years. And that helps when you go to other conferences. Then you have a sort of starting point for networking with other people. And a key thing here is just if you came with, you might have come with one other person, say, who you know. Don't just hang out with the people who you came with, the people you already know, right? Try to meet new people, because otherwise you'll sort of, this is another classic failure mode, is sort of hiding in the corner with the other student you know. I know, because I did that. It doesn't work. So try to meet new people. And when you meet other students, ask them about their experiences. Like, this is a great opportunity to learn about people around the world who are trying to study or trying to get into PL. People in different universities, very different universities have very different styles of sort of how they work and what research is like there, what it's like to work with different professors. Maybe you're applying to grad school and you want to know, what is it like to work with Professor X? So go talk to their students. There's a decent chance that some of them are here and they might be willing to tell you what it's like to work in their group. Of course, sharing wisdom about applying for grad school. So the other group of people you want to talk to or you want to get to know are sort of more senior people. And this is always difficult because they're very intimidating. I'm a senior person and I'm intimidated. Many of us are not naturally extroverted, or we may be some mixture of extroverted and introverted. And when it comes to social networking, I tend to be a little introverted. But you have to try. So I recommend trying to approach faculty or senior people during breaks. That's a time when it's often easier to approach them. They're a little scary, but they're mostly normal people, mostly. They want to talk to students. Faculty love talking to students. If you're seated with them at lunch, for example, there are these big round tables at lunch. Go sit at a random table, or maybe pick a table where there's someone you want to talk to, and don't be shy. Just introduce yourself, even though it is awkward. It's always awkward, right? Everything's awkward about introducing yourself to people you don't know. I know that when I sit at a table with a bunch of students, I also feel awkward, right? So if you introduce yourself to me, it makes me feel much more relaxed and more willing to sort of, start a conversation. And ask about their research, right? People love to talk about their research. They love to give advice. Most of them, again, there's some who aren't interested in talking. There's some who are very introverted. Don't take that personally. It's not like they annoyed at you. That's how they are. Talk to someone else instead. Most people really love to share their wisdom, and they love to give advice. And sort of just to sort of moving towards my conclusion here, the key thing is try to be intentional. As I said, don't let POPL happen to you. You should be thinking about what you want to get out of POPL. Be proactive. One way of doing this is look at the program, or maybe you already know about some people's research who you're interested in. Pick at least 3 people who you want to talk to during the conference, more senior people. You could also be senior grad students or someone whose research you're interested in, and go seek them out early, not on Friday. Right? Seek them out tomorrow. And try to nail them down for a specific time to chat. Or maybe they'll be willing to chat right that moment, but often you come up to someone and say, oh, I have this question about something, and they say, oh yeah, that's great, I can't talk right now. Ask them when they can talk, and follow up with an email, and try to get them to actually settle down to a particular spot. It doesn't have to be a long slot, maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's half an hour, but try to be proactive about getting them to talk to you. And then it's helpful if you really want to get them to talk to you, it helps if you have specific questions. So if you just go up to some senior person and say, I'd like to talk about, I don't know, research or something, or what it's like to be a researcher, they'll say yes. That will be something where they'll think, well, maybe I could talk to this person for 5 minutes. But if you have a specific interest in their research and you say, oh, this paper was really interesting, I had a question about such and such, then they might say, oh, well, actually, that sounds like it's more worth my time to talk to this person. So try to be more specific in the kind of questions you ask. And lastly, don't forget to have fun and get some rest. So being at a conference is really exciting, but it's also, I find, very stressful and a little tiring, actually very tiring, especially by the end of the week. So take some time off, not a huge amount, but make sure to take some time off to enjoy being in London. We're in a great neighborhood around here with museums and great restaurants and shopping, etc., and theater. Do something to enjoy the location, and maybe even take a nap. So, with that, I thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a great POPL and PLMW.
Thank you, Derek. I think we have time for a question or two if someone has one.
Hi, Derek. I'm a COVID baby. So this is actually I'm quite well into my PhD, but
Right.
This is only my second conference. Is there anything specific? I'm thinking about maybe postdocs, etc. Is there any specific advice, or is it just more of the same?
That's a good question. I haven't thought specifically about that, but I think it's mostly the same. I mean, you probably do know some more people, at least you've communicated with some other people in the field, even if not in person before. So, and you probably have some idea of who you might want to do a postdoc with. That'd be natural people to talk to, of course. Yeah, I mean, I know COVID was very rough. I also had several students who had several papers published before they could actually see get to a real conference.
Thank you.
Then I'll ask one more question just to close off this mini session. Derek, could you quickly talk about an interaction you had at POPL or another PL conference that you thought ended up being really important in your later career? Like someone you met or
My later
interacted
career or anything?
At that time,
well,
yeah, something
okay.
that stuck with you.
These questions are always really hard.
Sorry.
You could have told me that in advance. Anyway, okay. No, I can think of one just off the top of my head. Was actually one of the first conferences I went to as a postdoc. It was ICFP 2005, and that was where I think it was Manuel Chakravarty and Gabby Keller had a paper with Simon Peyton-Jones on associated type synonyms in Haskell. The details are not important here, but I looked at the paper. I thought this is really neat, and this looks like to me an application. This is sort of an instance of the kind of things we do with ML modules. Anyway, I went and talked to them at the conference, and they were super friendly. I mean, I had known them before. They had visited CMU at some point, and so I had met them then. But they were super friendly, and we just started talking. And that was actually the first. I ended up visiting them in Australia afterwards, and that was the first. That was one of my first papers that I wrote after my PhD, and that was really sparked by. Networking with people at a conference based on just seeing their talk and thinking this was related to my work. So again, I was proud of myself for being proactive.
That's perfect. All right, let's thank Derek again.